Hello and welcome back. At last, here is part 1 of the promised and much requested video showing our behind the scenes issues that we were faced with while crossing the Atlantic Ocean. All the not so nice, the bad, the ugly, the very annoying and some downright scary moments. We all took footage as each event happened, so this 3-part video will jump between real time and footage taken during the crossing. I've broken the footage down so as not to make this video 2 days long, explaining in text and narration as each event unfolds. Right now, I think the most annoying issue is sitting on our very dirty back deck, looking out over the bay, wishing that we were anchored off some remote sandy beach and not on land with our mast below the boat. The very reason we bought a brand new boat and not one that needed years of repair work in some dusty old boatyard. The first issues were power related. As mentioned in previous videos, we did not have a backup source of power, so before leaving Cape Town, we opted to install 2 high output alternators. That way, if we had a few days of greyish skies and needed to top up our batteries, we could do so by running the engines for an hour or 2. As you know, we left Cape Town with only one installed and working, as the other had already burnt out.
Problem is, while we're underway, instead of a generator, we've opted to use 2 high output alternators. I mean, ultimately that's what a generator is. A generator is a motor with an alternator. So instead of buying another motor with an alternator, we bought an alternator for each of our existing motors. The one in Cape Town blew, it just burnt out and was stinking and all of this sort of stuff. And we said, look, we're not going to wait for that. In fact, had we have waited for it, we'd still be waiting. We're not going to wait for that one. We've got one, so we're going to leave anyway. That alternator blew on the way here. So effectively, like a lot of other boats that actually go underway, all we've got is solar, which means we might not necessarily always have the luxuries of a washing machine and a drying machine, and we might not even be able from time to time to use our oven. And that depends on really the weather. On sunny days like today, here in Ludris, we always will be able to. The problems we've had is trying to deal with Leopard and trying to get responses out of them, and commitment, I suppose, to properly handling the issue of the alternators. But we'll let you know how that happens. Of course, they can't do anything here. We're hoping that they have the right experience or the right people, competent technical people, to finalize the install over in the Caribbean, and that they have the will to. That's very important. I just paid them this morning, regardless that they haven't done this, because I trust myself very much. And then, we're looking forward to that happening. Looking down into the engine room at the alternator, this is the alternator that's blown. This is the alternator controller, which the guys installed to control it, or regulator as they call it. As you can see, this side, the alternator is missing. This was the one that burnt out in Cape Town.
Then came the next power nightmare. A few days after leaving Cape Town, we suddenly had no power coming in from our solar panels, our only source of power at that point. It appeared that the solar panels had stopped working altogether. The
solar panels started giving a glitch. We couldn't see which were working and which weren't. So on this system, you can see all 9 solar panels independently. But they're working and the power's coming in, so that's fine. It was this glitch, and Multimarine are going to post us a new hub. So it's a little USB hub that all 9 solar panels come into, and then I think they've got a reading from the USB hub that comes to this device here, and it allows us to see each solar panel independently. As you can see at the moment, I can only see 3. 1, 2, 3. Those are 3 solar panels, but there are 9 pulling in the power. So I'm interested now how Leopard plan to sort this out, and really to their commitment to making sure that what they've sold the customers actually work. In this case, the alternators cost nearly 300,000 Rand, and I've got nothing. So initially they wanted me to come back to Cape Town, which of course wasn't going to happen. I also had worry from the crew who were departing Utopia because they felt unsafe with just solar. Fortunately, Marcel verified for us, and as did Paul Bardenos, that we're absolutely safe. Many boats have gone before us with solar only.
These power issues caused our crew to be fearful enough to want to jump ship, resigning and leaving us abandoned in Namibia. We can't blame them for being fearful, but it was not great when they announced that they thought it was too dangerous to continue with us. This was an extremely stressful time. Not only did we not know at that point if Leopard were going to uphold and honour the warranty of the critical items that had failed along the way, but now we had to deal with not having crew. It was like being punched in the stomach. How do you arrange replacement crew from a foreign country? We knew we could not go on our own. I had not been well during most of the trip between Cape Town and Leeuwarden and expected that I might be the same for the rest of the trip. Georgia was too young, inexperienced, and too scared to do watches on her own, which just left Kevin. That meant he would need to be on watch 24/7. Not going to happen. We were well and truly stuck. Thankfully, we were able to sit down with Garen and Carol to discuss their concerns. By then, we had struggled through the badly intermittent Starlink connection and managed to communicate with Leopard's electricians in Cape Town, who spoke us through bringing our solar panels back online, to the point where it was just the hub that displayed the incoming power that remained faulty. After speaking with a few people that had crossed the Atlantic with just solar, we learned that we could continue reasonably safely. That is to say, even in longish stretches of overcast weather, we should have enough power for the navigation equipment, making of water, and keeping the fridges running. These were the three critical items. Having them meant that we would survive. During all of this mayhem, our only way of communicating was via WhatsApp with Starlink. We discovered that Starlink needed a lot of power to run, and because of our power issues, we were in power conservation mode. We would not leave it on all the time, and while off the coast of Africa, when we turned it back on again, it could take hours to reconnect, and even when it did connect, the signal was not always strong enough to support a voice call. There were times when we were desperate to communicate with Leopard for advice and guidance. Waiting for connection or a return message was really frustrating and really scary at times. But thankfully, we at least did have Starlink and were able to communicate.
So we'd lost our alternators, and both alternators, the one in Cape Town, we lost the other alternator on the second day, and then I think it was on the third day or whenever it was, just after that, we lost all solar. So we had no power coming in. So the power that we had in our battery was all we had, and we were going to run flat, not able to run our fridges, not able to navigate, and not able to make water. And then on top of that, Starlink wasn't working properly, and we needed to talk to Leopard about the problems. So we had all of that, and then on top of it, we got the cable under the rudder bar, which is going to wear away.
Yeah.
Okay, cable's going to wear away. Then we get a crap load of leaks all over the boat, in the engine room and in the bilges, which feels like we're sinking. I mean, so much water's coming in. I mean, it was just like we've got all these issues going on, and now we're sinking as well. I mean, I know we weren't sinking, but that's what it feels like when you've got water leaking in bloody everywhere. The length of that hull and the length of that hull. This water's just coming in. And then the crew want to jump ship, leaving us stuck with our fingers up the you-know-what.
Only because they were scared that we didn't have any power.
Yeah, because they
cross an ocean without your navigation equipment.
Yeah, but regardless, I mean, they don't even ask us. They just say, "That's it, we're out of here." And we go, "Well, why?" You know, so we're sitting there, and I don't know how the hell I'm going to take us anywhere, because there's just me. You were man down. Georgia couldn't, you couldn't leave George. He was too young. Yeah. So there's only me to try and move this boat. So we're stuck. So all of this stuff is just like bearing down on us. And then what happens? We get the guy from Leopard try to have our movement arrested out of Leeuwarden. So how that goes down is, after being stuck on the dock for 13 months because of Leopard, just, I mean, they had a million excuses. That's another video. But the bottom line is that work wasn't 13 months worth of work. I should have been out of there in 5 months at most.
Your
but anyway,
original plan was to be in Durban.
Yeah. the full second list settled by the end of September 2022. And the plan with all of that work was that I would be out of there in December 2022. And we only actually ever got out of there in September 23, right? So the background to that is that on the Friday before we were due to leave, and we were due to leave on the Monday, Marcel comes to me at 4 o'clock on the Friday with a bill and says, this is now the second one. It was a small bill, but I could see that there was a lot of errors on the bill. So I said, well, I can't pay this because there's errors. And he said, but his boss, or I don't know if it's his boss or not, but the Leopard sales guy, he wanted payment now. Before Marcel got on the airplane on that Sunday, it was Friday, 4 o'clock. Marcel was getting on the airplane on the Sunday. We were due to leave on the Monday morning. We ended up leaving on the Tuesday morning, but we were due to leave on the Monday morning. And he had to have it paid before he left. And I said, well,
at the same time, that Friday afternoon, we had gone out for a sea trial. And that's when the first alternator burnt out.
Yeah, and then that
fire. So then that afternoon, we sat around with trying to get the electricians and at that stage they just thought it was the brackets and the belts that were causing a problem. So we were still had people inside the engine rooms trying to do adjusting while you were now dealing with Marcel and the boat.
I know, the boat was so busy that Marcel actually took me off the boat to have the discussion about the bill, and we went onto the boat behind. And it was 4 o'clock on the Friday, and he said his guy in the office, the Leopard sales guy, the guy that sold me the boat, wants that small amount of money, and I've done the calculation, it's a little bit over 5% of the total amount. He wants it paid now. And then when I saw the errors on the bill, I said, well, we obviously got to fix this bill up. You can't pay the bill if it's wrong. And eventually we agreed that I would pay a big portion of it, which turned out to be 71% of it. So let's just round it and call it 70% of it. So I paid the 70%, or I made the payment before we left. So that whole heavy pressure to pay the bill was so weird, because we'd heard from other owners that had left the V&A, had left Leopard, that Leopard didn't even bother to ask them for the money until months afterwards. You know, it was all cool. So it was almost like, is this a trust thing? But it couldn't have been a trust thing, because, as I said, when I bought the boat, I offered to pay 100% of it. And they said, no, that's not the way they work. They only wanted their, I think it was 20% deposit, and pay the 100% a year later. And with the next aftermarket invoice, I offered to pay 100% of it, and Marcel accepted that. So I paid 100% of that a year before all the goods were even supplied. In fact, probably a year and a half before all the goods were even supplied. So that was really surprising. So I get the phone call saying the money actually hadn't been received, and I'd paid it 5 days earlier or 6 days earlier. And I thought, that's impossible. So I go into the account and I have a look, and I can see the money hadn't gone out. So I checked the POP, the proof of payment, and I saw this tiny little thing which Leopard themselves had missed, which said exceeded the daily limit or something. So we made that payment immediately. The moment I spoke to Marcel, went in and I made that payment. The problem is that payment was coming from Australia to South Africa, who have their own regulation. It can take 2 or 3 days. And later on that day or the next day, Marcel phoned in a panic saying the money's still not there, and that he's been instructed to phone the Luderitz Port Authority and have them stop us from moving out of Luderitz until they've been paid.
Absolutely. And we were ready to go, and we had just got the crew back on board, and we didn't want to hang around and wait. We wanted to leave. So there was a big panic station. So then you decided to phone the Leopard guy. Now, had he just phoned you initially in the beginning, it would have...
Yeah, there would have been no problem. If he just phoned and said, listen, the money didn't go into our account, and we could have... And he said, yet you sent me a POP, proof of payment, almost like I'd done something fraudulent to it.
Yeah.
So then I phoned the Leopard guy. Yeah, you're not allowed to use his name.
Even though we had permission to use the recorded calls on the video, we've decided that we would rather not play the voice of the Leopard sales guy.
Yeah. I'm not very impressed with it. It's quite shocking, actually. In the 2 weeks in the lead up to us departing, I gave him the items. You know, some of the items I think maybe the administration wasn't absolutely perfect or whatever. I said, here's the list of what you've got to bill me. In other words, because I keep track of everything. I gave him the list on the Thursday, and the Friday before he left, he came back and he billed me. By the way, you're really not being nice. So the first thing is, you'll remember when I bought this boat, right at the beginning, you said you've got to pay a deposit. I said, can I pay the whole lot up front? You said, no, you can't. So I had to wait to pay it. Hang on, bear with me. The second thing is, when the first aftermarket invoice came out for Marcel said, I only have to pay 50%. I said, please, I don't like paying 50%. Can I pay the whole thing up front? And he actually said yes. So I paid 100%. I'm sorry I made a mistake. When I made that POP payment, I didn't notice the same little letters on there that there was the problem. I made that payment yesterday, and you got the POP, and now you got a photograph of my bank statement. You cannot ask me to pay a bill which is not agreed yet and which Marcel admits there's mistakes on. Whether or not that marina part of it's got to be discussed, that's a separate issue. Your bill is wrong. Fix your bill and send it to me, and I'll pay the bill.
So the minute we got across the ocean to Grenada, across the Atlantic to Grenada, you did exactly what you said you were going to do.
Yeah, so we had a meeting with Marcel and this Leopard guy.
Yep.
We went through the bill, and we found out that there was about $10,000 worth of overcharging. They quickly adjusted the bill to a value $10,000 less than the original value to fix up those amounts, and I paid it within 15 minutes of that meeting. Within 15 minutes, which is what I said to them in Cape Town. So there seems to be an ongoing issue with this particular guy, mostly that he's pretty non-responsive to the warranty issues. Maybe this changes, maybe he's really busy. But one way or the other, it might be a personal issue, which I suspect it is. I hope to be proven wrong, but as the warranty process happens, so we'll be recording it as whether it's that they do the right thing or that they do the wrong thing, and if they do the wrong thing, how we handle it. But I hope that in a few weeks' time, we're actually able to report that, hey, they did the right thing, and pretty much 80% of everything is done.
As we left Lüderitz, we were all so happy to be on our way to paradise. Surely everything should be good now. We thought the worst was behind us. Funny how that's never the case. Stay tuned for the next 2 parts. Please click the subscribe and like button. It doesn't cost you anything, but it does help our channel.